The morning sun cast long shadows across the Naval Special Warfare Training Facility in San Diego as Sarah Martinez adjusted her gear one final time. At 28 years old, she had already broken barriers that most people could only dream of crossing. The daughter of a Mexican immigrant father and Irish-American mother, Sarah had clawed her way through every challenge the military could throw at her. Her hands moved with practiced precision as she checked her equipment. The weight of expectation pressed down on her shoulders like a physical force. Today wasn't just another training exercise. Today, she would face the most elite warriors the United States military had to offer in a demonstration that would either validate years of preparation or destroy everything she had worked toward. The whispers had followed her for months. Some questioned whether a woman belonged in these sacred halls where legends were forged. Others doubted her capability to match the physical and mental demands that had broken countless men before her. But Sarah had learned to channel doubt into determination, transforming every skeptical glance into fuel for her relentless pursuit of excellence. Commander James Harrison watched from the observation deck as Sarah completed her pre-exercise routine. A veteran of 3 deployments and countless classified missions, Harrison had seen warriors of every stripe. Yet something about the young woman below commanded his attention. Her movements spoke of countless hours of training, but, more importantly, they revealed an inner steel that couldn't be taught or manufactured. The training facility buzzed with unusual energy. Word had spread throughout the base that today's exercise would be different. The Navy SEALs, accustomed to being the apex predators in any military scenario, found themselves facing an unprecedented situation. Their opponent wouldn't be enemy combatants or challenging terrain, but a single individual who represented a fundamental shift in military culture. Sarah's journey to this moment had begun 5 years earlier in a cramped recruitment office in Phoenix, Arizona. Fresh out of college with a degree in mechanical engineering, she had shocked her family by announcing her intention to join the Navy. Her father, who had spent decades building a successful construction business, couldn't understand why his daughter would abandon a promising civilian career for the uncertainties of military life. The early days had been brutal. Basic training pushed Sarah to physical and mental limits she hadn't known existed. Drill instructors seemed determined to break her spirit, subjecting her to scrutiny that went beyond normal training protocols. Every mistake was magnified, every success minimized. Yet with each passing week, Sarah grew stronger, more determined, and increasingly confident in her abilities. Advanced training brought new challenges. The technical aspects of her role came naturally, her engineering background providing a solid foundation for understanding complex systems and procedures. But the physical demands required a different kind of preparation. Sarah spent countless hours in gyms, on running tracks, and in swimming pools, transforming her body into a precision instrument capable of meeting any challenge. The other trainees initially viewed her with a mixture of curiosity and skepticism. Military culture, especially in elite units, had always been dominated by masculine traditions and expectations. Sarah's presence forced everyone to confront assumptions they had never questioned. Some embraced the change, recognizing that capability mattered more than gender. Others resisted, clinging to outdated beliefs about women in combat roles. Lieutenant Colonel Patricia Williams had been Sarah's mentor throughout the journey. A trailblazer in her own right, Williams understood the unique pressures facing women in male-dominated military specialties. She had provided guidance that went beyond technical instruction, helping Sarah navigate the complex social dynamics that could make or break a military career. Excellence is your only ally, Williams had told her during a particularly difficult training phase. You cannot afford to be average, good, or even very good. You must be exceptional in everything you do because that's the only way to silence the doubters and earn the respect you deserve. Those words echoed in Sarah's mind as she made final preparations for the day's exercise. The scenario had been designed to test every skill she had developed over years of intensive training. navigation, combat tactics, technical problem-solving, physical endurance, and mental resilience would all be evaluated under conditions that simulated real-world operations. The briefing room filled with tension as officers and enlisted personnel gathered to observe the exercise. Many had never witnessed a demonstration of this magnitude, where a single individual would face challenges typically reserved for entire teams. The betting pools that had sprung up around the base reflected the widespread skepticism about Sarah's chances of success. Master Chief Robert Sullivan, a 30-year veteran with more decorations than wall space, had been chosen to oversee the exercise. Known for his fairness, but also his exacting standards, Sullivan commanded respect from everyone in the room. His presence ensured that the demonstration would be conducted with the professionalism and integrity that the situation demanded. As Sarah entered the briefing room, conversations died away. Every eye focused on her as she walked with quiet confidence to the front of the room. She wore standard training gear, nothing special or distinctive, yet her bearing set her apart. Years of preparation had given her an aura of competence that even her harshest critics couldn't deny. The mission parameters were complex and demanding. Sarah would need to infiltrate a simulated enemy compound, gather intelligence, neutralize specific targets, and extract to a predetermined location. The exercise would unfold across varied terrain, requiring skills ranging from underwater navigation to urban combat techniques. Most significantly, she would face opposition from active duty SEALs who had been instructed to treat the exercise as a genuine operational scenario. Commander Harrison stepped forward to address the assembled group. His words would set the tone for everything that followed, establishing expectations and ground rules that would govern the demonstration. The stakes couldn't be higher, both for Sarah individually and for the broader questions about women in elite military roles that her performance would help answer. Today we witness something unprecedented in naval special warfare history. Harrison began, his voice carrying the authority of years in command. The individual you're about to observe has completed every requirement, passed every test, and demonstrated capabilities that place her among the most qualified candidates we've ever evaluated. What happens here today will be judged solely on performance, not on preconceptions or biases. Sarah felt the weight of history settling around her shoulders. She understood that her actions over the next several hours would influence policy decisions, career opportunities, and the future of countless women who might follow in her footsteps. The responsibility was enormous, but she had prepared for this moment her entire adult life. The final briefing details were reviewed, equipment checks completed, and communication protocols established. In 30 minutes, Sarah would begin an exercise that would test everything she had learned and determine whether years of preparation had been sufficient to meet the ultimate challenge. The 267 SEALs gathered to observe knew they were witnessing a historic moment, though none could predict the shocking turn of events that awaited them all. The helicopter's rotors cut through the morning air as Sarah checked her gear one final time. Below, the Pacific Ocean stretched endlessly toward the horizon, its surface broken only by the occasional white cap. The insertion point lay 12 miles offshore, where she would begin the most challenging test of her career. The aircraft vibrated with familiar rhythms that had become second nature during countless training missions. Petty Officer First Class Mike Rodriguez sat across from her, his expression unreadable behind tactical goggles. As one of the SEALs who would serve as her opposition during the exercise, Rodriguez represented years of elite training and combat experience. He had volunteered for this role, curious to see whether the woman who had generated so much controversy could back up her reputation with actual performance. 30 seconds to drop zone, the pilot announced through the intercom system. Sarah stood and moved toward the helicopter's open door, where ocean spray and salt air mixed with the mechanical sounds of rotors and engines. The water below appeared deceptively calm, masking currents and challenges that had defeated many experienced operators over the years. The dive itself was flawless. Sarah hit the water with minimal splash, her body cutting through the surface like a spear. The The shock of cold Pacific water immediately focused her mind on the tasks ahead. Years of underwater training kicked in as she oriented herself and began swimming toward the first objective point. The exercise had officially begun. 6 miles away, Lieutenant Commander Jessica Chen monitored the exercise from the command center. As the highest-ranking female officer involved in the demonstration, Chen felt a personal investment in Sarah's success. She had fought her own battles against gender discrimination throughout her career and understood the broader implications of what was unfolding in real time. The first phase required Sarah to navigate underwater for over a mile while avoiding sonar detection systems operated by SEAL teams positioned at strategic locations. The technical complexity of this challenge went beyond simple swimming endurance, requiring precise timing and navigation skills that few people possessed. Underwater visibility was limited, and the constant threat of detection added psychological pressure to an already demanding physical task. Sarah's engineering background proved invaluable as she calculated current patterns and acoustic signatures that might reveal her position. She moved through the water with efficient strokes, maintaining a depth that balanced oxygen conservation with detection avoidance. Her dive computer displayed crucial information about depth, direction, and elapsed time, but ultimate success depended on instinct honed through thousands of hours in similar conditions. The SEAL teams hunting for her employed sophisticated detection equipment and tactics developed through decades of anti-submarine warfare experience. Hydrophones scattered throughout the exercise area could pick up the slightest unusual sound, while sonar operators trained to identify human signatures scanned constantly for evidence of Sarah's presence. The electronic warfare component of the exercise added layers of complexity that transformed a simple swim into a high-stakes game of underwater hide and seek. Chief Petty Officer David Thompson commanded the primary hunter team, his 20 years of experience providing intimate knowledge of how human beings moved through water. He had successfully detected countless swimmers during training exercises and real-world operations, developing an almost supernatural ability to predict human behavior in aquatic environments. Thompson viewed the current exercise as just another opportunity to demonstrate his team's superiority. Contact bearing 047, reported sonar operator second class Jennifer Walsh, her trained ear detecting anomalous sounds in the underwater acoustic environment. The report triggered immediate action from Thompson's team as they adjusted their search pattern to investigate the potential detection. Standard protocol required verification before declaring positive identification, but the initial report generated excitement throughout the hunter team. Sarah sensed the increased activity around her position without understanding the specific nature of the threat. Years of training had developed her situational awareness to almost supernatural levels, allowing her to detect subtle changes in her environment that might indicate danger. She adjusted her course and depth, using natural terrain features to mask her movement while maintaining progress toward the objective. The near miss with Thompson's team demonstrated the razor-thin margins that separated success from failure in elite military operations. Sarah's survival depended on split-second decisions and perfect execution of techniques that had been drilled into muscle memory through countless repetitions. Any mistake could result in detection, capture, and failure of the entire mission. Meanwhile, the observation team back at the command center watched events unfold through a combination of tracking systems and direct communication with participating units. The technology provided unprecedented visibility into every aspect of the exercise, allowing senior officers to evaluate not just Sarah's performance, but also the effectiveness of the SEALs attempting to stop her. Admiral Patricia Morrison, the most senior female officer in attendance, observed the proceedings with intense interest. As someone who had spent her entire career fighting for opportunities and recognition in male-dominated fields, Morrison understood that Sarah's performance would influence policy decisions affecting thousands of current and future servicewomen. The political implications extended far beyond a single training exercise. "She's making this look easy," commented Commander Harrison, as tracking data showed Sarah's steady progress toward the first checkpoint. Her navigation remained precise despite the challenging conditions, and her pace suggested excellent physical conditioning and tactical awareness. The early phases of the exercise were proceeding exactly as Sarah's supporters had hoped, but the SEAL teams were just getting started. The first phase had been designed primarily to test basic infiltration skills, while subsequent challenges would require more complex problem-solving under increasingly difficult conditions. The real test of Sarah's capabilities lay ahead, in scenarios specifically designed to exploit potential weaknesses and push her to absolute limits. Underwater, Sarah reached the first checkpoint and located the equipment cache that had been positioned for the exercise. The waterproof container held specialized gear required for the next phase, including breathing apparatus, navigation tools, and communication equipment. Her ability to locate and access the cache under these conditions demonstrated technical proficiency that impressed even skeptical observers. The transition from underwater infiltration to land-based operations required careful planning and execution. Sarah had to emerge from the ocean at a specific location while avoiding detection by shore-based surveillance teams. The rocky coastline provided natural concealment, but also presented navigation challenges that had defeated many experienced operators in previous exercises. As she approached the shoreline, Sarah could hear the distant sounds of human activity that indicated the presence of opposing forces. The SEALs had position observation posts at likely emergence points, creating a gauntlet that she would need to navigate using stealth and tactical awareness. Her success in reaching this point had exceeded the expectations of many observers, but the most difficult challenges still lay ahead. The equipment check revealed that everything was functioning properly and ready for the next phase. Sarah's technical background proved valuable as she quickly verified the operation of complex electronic systems under field conditions. Her confidence grew with each successfully completed task, but she remained focused on the ultimate objective rather than allowing early success to breed complacency. The swim to shore required different skills than the earlier underwater navigation. Surface swimming exposed her to visual detection, but allowed faster movement and better navigation. Sarah timed her approach to coincide with natural conditions that would provide maximum concealment, demonstrating tactical awareness that had been developed through years of training in similar environments. As her feet touched the rocky bottom near shore, Sarah knew that the exercise was entering its most dangerous phase. The SEALs waiting on land had home field advantage and years of experience in exactly the type of operations she was attempting. Everything she had accomplished so far would be meaningless if she failed in the challenges that awaited her on dry ground. The rocky shoreline stretched before Sarah like a medieval battlefield, every shadow potentially concealing enemy forces. She emerged from the Pacific waters with the silence of a ghost, her blackened face and tactical gear rendering her nearly invisible against the pre-dawn darkness. Water dripped steadily from her equipment as she assessed the terrain ahead, searching for the safest route through what she knew would be a carefully orchestrated ambush zone. Senior Chief Marcus Williams crouched behind a cluster of boulders 300 yards inland, his night vision equipment scanning the waterline for any sign of movement. With 15 years of combat experience spanning 3 different conflict zones, Williams had developed an almost supernatural ability to detect human presence in hostile environments. He commanded a team of 12 SEALs positioned along the most likely infiltration routes, each man representing decades of collective training and operational experience. Sarah's intelligence briefing had warned her about the shore-based opposition, but theoretical knowledge differed vastly from the reality of facing elite warriors on their home turf. She moved inland with calculated precision, using natural terrain features to mask her movement while maintaining progress toward the primary objective. Every step required careful consideration of sight lines, sound discipline, and potential escape routes. The abandoned lighthouse that served as her first major checkpoint stood silhouetted against the star-filled sky, its darkened windows staring down like empty eye sockets. Intelligence reports indicated that the structure contained critical information required for the next phase of the mission, but accessing it would require penetrating defensive positions that the SEALs had spent hours preparing. Petty Officer Second Class Anthony Garcia adjusted his position in the lighthouse's upper level, his rifle scope providing a clear view of the approaches from the ocean. Garcia had volunteered for this assignment out of genuine curiosity about whether a woman could truly match the capabilities that SEALs took for granted. His orders were clear: treat Sarah exactly as he would any enemy combatant attempting to infiltrate the position. The climbing phase proved to be one of Sarah's greatest advantages. Years of technical training had made her an expert in vertical environments, whether scaling building walls or navigating cliff faces. She approached the lighthouse from an unexpected angle, using equipment and techniques that most of the SEALs hadn't anticipated. Her engineering background provided an intuitive understanding of structural weak points and access routes that weren't immediately obvious. As Sarah began her ascent of the lighthouse's exterior wall, she could hear muffled conversations from within the structure. The SEALs were coordinating their defensive positions, unaware that their primary target was already bypassing their carefully prepared kill zones. Her climbing equipment muffled any sounds that might betray her presence, while her route avoided windows and openings where defenders might detect movement. Inside the lighthouse, Garcia became increasingly puzzled by the lack of activity along his assigned sector. Standard infiltration doctrine called for direct approaches that would trigger defensive responses, yet nothing was happening in the areas he could observe. He keyed his radio to report the unusual situation, unknowingly providing Sarah with valuable intelligence about the defenders' positions and state of readiness. Lighthouse 1 to all stations. No movement detected on the eastern approaches. Advise if you have visual contact with the target, Garcia transmitted, his voice carrying a note of confusion that wasn't lost on the other team members. The exercise had been running for over 2 hours, yet none of the shore-based teams had spotted their elusive opponent. Sarah reached the lighthouse's upper level just as Garcia finished his radio transmission. Her position outside the structure's main room provided her with a clear view of the defensive layout while keeping her invisible to the occupants. She could see 3 SEALs positioned at different windows, their attention focused outward on approaches that she had already bypassed through unconventional tactics. The information retrieval phase required Sarah to access a computer terminal located in the lighthouse's control room. Getting to the terminal meant moving past trained warriors who would react instantly to any threat, using skills honed through countless hours of close-quarters combat training. Sarah's success would depend on speed, surprise, and perfect execution of techniques that she had practiced thousands of times, but never used in actual confrontation with elite opponents. She entered the lighthouse through a maintenance hatch that provided access to the structure's interior without using any of the main entrances that the SEALs were watching. Her movement through the building's confined spaces required extreme stealth and precise knowledge of the layout, information that she had memorized during mission planning, but never verified through direct observation. The computer terminal glowed softly in the darkness of the control room, its screen displaying the interface that Sarah needed to access. The information she required would download in approximately 30 seconds, but those 30 seconds would be the most dangerous of the entire exercise. Any sound or movement that alerted the defenders would result in immediate confrontation with overwhelming force. As her fingers flew across the keyboard, Sarah could hear the SEALs moving through the lighthouse, their conversations indicating growing concern about her apparent disappearance. The radio chatter suggested that shore-based teams were expanding their search patterns, unable to explain how their target had evaded detection for so long. Download complete. The computer screen announced in text, confirming that Sarah had successfully retrieved the intelligence required for mission continuation. She copied the data to her portable storage device and prepared to exit the lighthouse, knowing that the most dangerous moment was approaching. Her extraction from the building would need to be as flawless as her infiltration had been. The sound of footsteps approaching the control room indicated that one of the defenders was conducting a routine security check. Sarah had perhaps 15 seconds to complete her data transfer and find concealment before being discovered. Her heart rate remained steady despite the pressure, years of training having conditioned her to perform under exactly these types of stress-inducing circumstances. Garcia's boots echoed in the hallway as he approached the control room, his rifle ready for immediate use if he encountered any threats. Standard security protocols required periodic checks of all areas within the defensive perimeter, even those that seemed unlikely to be compromised. His training had emphasized that assumptions about enemy behavior often proved to be deadly mistakes. Sarah completed her data transfer with 3 seconds to spare, melting into shadows near the room's entrance just as Garcia appeared in the doorway. The SEAL's night vision equipment scanned the space methodically, searching for any sign of intrusion or unusual activity. His inspection of the computer terminal would reveal that it had been recently accessed, potentially alerting the entire defensive team to her presence. The inspection lasted nearly 30 seconds as Garcia examined every detail of the control room. His training had taught him to trust his instincts when something felt wrong, and the atmosphere in the room triggered subtle warning signals that he couldn't quite identify. Sarah remained motionless in her concealment, knowing that the slightest movement could result in immediate detection and capture. Control room secure. Continuing patrol. Garcia finally reported, his voice carrying a note of uncertainty that reflected his inability to identify the source of his unease. He moved on to check other areas of the lighthouse, unknowingly providing Sarah with the opportunity she needed to begin her extraction from the building. The successful intelligence retrieval represented a major victory, but Sarah knew that the most challenging phases of the exercise still lay ahead. The next checkpoint required her to traverse 5 miles of rugged terrain while avoiding multiple SEAL teams that would be actively hunting her. Her success at the lighthouse had demonstrated impressive capabilities, but sustained performance over extended periods would provide the ultimate test of her training and preparation. As she prepared to leave the lighthouse through the same route she had used for entry, Sarah could hear increased radio activity that suggested the SEALs were modifying their search patterns. Her successful infiltration had forced them to reconsider their assumptions about her capabilities and likely courses of action. The psychological advantage was shifting in her favor, but she understood that cornered elite warriors often proved to be most dangerous when they felt threatened or outmaneuvered. The terrain between the lighthouse and the next objective stretched across 5 miles of the most challenging landscape that Southern California could offer. Rocky canyons carved by centuries of erosion created a maze of hidden passages and deadly drop-offs, while dense vegetation provided both concealment and obstacles that could slow movement to a crawl. Sarah studied her route through night vision equipment, calculating the safest path through territory that the SEALs knew far better than she did. Master Chief Robert Sullivan monitored the exercise from the mobile command post, his decades of experience allowing him to anticipate developments that younger officers might miss. Sarah's performance had exceeded expectations in every category, forcing him to acknowledge capabilities that he hadn't believed possible. Her success at the lighthouse had been particularly impressive, demonstrating tactical innovation that even experienced SEALs found surprising. "Sir, we've lost contact with the target for over 40 minutes, reported Lieutenant Commander Peterson, his frustration evident in both voice and body language. The SEAL teams had deployed every tracking technique in their arsenal, yet Sarah seemed to have vanished into the landscape like a ghost. Standard doctrine called for saturation searches when high-value targets disappeared, but the exercise parameters prevented the use of certain detection methods. The canyon system that Sarah had chosen for her route offered natural concealment from aerial observation while providing multiple paths toward her objective. Her engineering training proved invaluable as she analyzed rock formations and water patterns that revealed the safest routes through potentially dangerous terrain. Each decision required balancing speed against security, knowing that the SEALs were undoubtedly closing their net around the area. 50 yards above her position, Chief Petty Officer Michael Torres led a 4-man team along the canyon rim. Their movement coordinated with other units to create overlapping fields of observation. Torres had participated in dozens of similar exercises and understood that success required patience, systematic searching, and the ability to think like the quarry. His team moved with practiced silence, their equipment configured to maximize detection capabilities while minimizing their own signature. The psychological pressure of being hunted by multiple teams of elite warriors would have broken many people, but Sarah had trained extensively for exactly these conditions. Her instructors had emphasized that mental toughness often proved more important than physical capabilities when operating under sustained stress. She maintained focus on immediate tasks while keeping track of the larger mission objectives that would determine ultimate success or failure. The next checkpoint required Sarah to access a communications relay station positioned on high ground that offered excellent visibility in all directions. The facility had been designed to test her ability to overcome technical challenges while under direct observation by hostile forces. Simply reaching the station would require crossing open ground where concealment was minimal and detection almost certain. As she approached the final canyon that led to higher ground, Sarah could hear the distinctive sounds of helicopter rotor blades in the distance. The SEALs were bringing additional resources to bear, expanding their search capabilities through aerial platforms that could cover vast areas in minimal time. Her window for completing the mission was shrinking rapidly as more assets joined the hunt. The helicopter crew consisted of experienced special operations aviators who understood the nuances of tracking human targets in complex terrain. Their night vision and infrared equipment could detect heat signatures and movement that would be invisible to ground-based observers. Pilot Chief Warrant Officer Lisa Chun had logged hundreds of hours in similar operations, developing an almost intuitive ability to predict where targets might attempt to hide. Sarah's route to the communication station required crossing an exposed ridgeline where aerial detection was almost inevitable. She waited in concealment until the helicopter moved to search a different area, then sprinted across the danger zone with speed that surprised even her own expectations. Years of physical conditioning had prepared her for exactly this type of sustained high-intensity effort. The communications relay station stood on a rocky outcropping that provided commanding views of the surrounding territory. Reaching the facility required a technical climb that would expose Sarah to observation from multiple directions while demanding complete focus on the physical challenges of scaling vertical rock faces. The combination of climbing difficulty and tactical vulnerability created one of the most demanding challenges of the entire exercise. Below her position, Sergeant First Class Maria Gonzalez positioned her sniper team to cover the approaches to the communication station. Gonzalez had earned recognition as one of the most accurate marksmen in naval special warfare, her skills honed through countless hours of practice and multiple combat deployments. Her orders were to observe and report Sarah's movements rather than engage directly, but her presence added psychological pressure that few people could ignore. The climb itself tested every technical skill that Sarah had developed over years of training. The rock face offered minimal handholds and required precise movement that couldn't be rushed without risking dangerous falls. Her equipment had to be configured to avoid creating noise that might alert nearby observers, while maintaining full functionality for the tasks that awaited her at the summit. As Sarah neared the top of the climb, she could see the communications relay station silhouetted against the night sky. The facility appeared to be unoccupied, but her training had taught her never to assume that obvious observations reflected actual reality. The SEALs were masters of deception and misdirection, capable of creating elaborate ambushes that looked like undefended positions until unwary targets walked into kill zones. The final approach to the communication station required crossing 50 yards of open ground that offered no concealment from aerial or ground-based observation. Sarah timed her movement to coincide with the helicopter's patrol pattern, using the brief window when the aircraft was searching other areas to sprint toward her objective. Her success depended on speed and the hope that ground-based observers weren't positioned to detect her movement. Inside the communication station, Sarah discovered that accessing the required information would involve defeating electronic security measures that had been designed by experts in cybersecurity. The technical challenge combined her engineering background with specialized training in electronic warfare, requiring skills that went far beyond basic computer operation. Time pressure added complexity to tasks that would have been challenging under laboratory conditions. The security system proved to be more sophisticated than anticipated, requiring multiple authentication steps and technical procedures that Sarah had to execute flawlessly while remaining alert for signs of approaching hostile forces. Her success in penetrating the electronic defenses demonstrated capabilities that impressed even skeptical observers monitoring the exercise from the command center. Target has reached the communications facility and is attempting to access the system, reported Gonzalez through encrypted radio channels that linked all participants in the exercise. Her observation confirmed that Sarah had successfully navigated one of the most challenging phases of the mission, overcoming obstacles that had defeated many experienced operators in previous exercises. The data download from the communication station required nearly 10 minutes to complete, during which Sarah remained vulnerable to detection and captured by the SEALs who were undoubtedly closing in on her position. The information she was retrieving included critical intelligence about the final phase of the mission, details that would determine whether her remarkable performance could be sustained through the ultimate challenge. As the download neared completion, Sarah could hear the sounds of approaching ground forces that indicated her location had been compromised. The SEALs were moving with tactical precision toward the communication station, their approach coordinated to prevent any possibility of escape. The next few minutes would determine whether her mission ended in success or capture by overwhelmingly superior forces. The completed data download provided Sarah with intelligence about the final objective, a simulated hostage rescue scenario that would test every skill she had demonstrated throughout the exercise. The mission parameters indicated that she would need to infiltrate a defended compound, neutralize multiple guards, and extract simulated hostages while avoiding capture by reaction forces that would respond within minutes of any detected intrusion. Her escape from the communication station required the same combination of speed, stealth, and tactical awareness that had characterized her performance throughout the exercise. The SEALs were less than 2 minutes away from her position when she began her descent from the facility, using rappelling techniques to reach ground level faster than pursuing forces could follow. The final objective materialized through Sarah's night vision scope as a collection of concrete buildings surrounded by chain-link fencing and guard towers. The simulated enemy compound had been designed to replicate real-world scenarios that SEALs might encounter during hostage rescue operations. Intelligence gathered from the communication station indicated that 3 simulated hostages were being held in the central building, protected by a rotating guard force of 8 armed defenders. Commander Harrison watched from the observation bunker as tracking displays showed Sarah's approach to the compound. Her performance throughout the night had been nothing short of extraordinary, exceeding expectations that had been set deliberately high to test her true capabilities. The final phase would determine whether she could maintain her level of excellence under the most demanding conditions the exercise designers could create. The perimeter defenses included motion sensors, infrared cameras, and human sentries positioned to create overlapping fields of observation around the entire facility. Sarah studied the defensive layout through binoculars, searching for weaknesses that might allow infiltration without triggering immediate alarm responses. The compound had been designed by security experts who understood how elite warriors thought and moved. Inside the central building, Senior Chief Kevin Martinez briefed his team of 7 SEALs who would serve as the compound's defenders. Martinez had commanded similar facilities during actual combat operations, lending authentic realism to the exercise scenario. His instructions emphasized that Sarah should be treated as a highly capable adversary who had already demonstrated exceptional skills throughout the night. Remember, this woman has made it through everything we've thrown at her so far, Martinez reminded his team. She's not here by accident or luck. Treat her like the professional operator she's proven herself to be, because anything less will get you killed in a real-world scenario. The three simulated hostages were played by Navy personnel who had been briefed to act as genuine captives would behave under similar circumstances. Their performance would add psychological realism to the scenario while testing Sarah's ability to manage civilian safety during combat operations. The presence of non-combatants complicated every tactical decision and required additional layers of planning and execution. Sarah's infiltration route took her through a drainage system that provided concealed access to the compound's interior. The underground passages were narrow and uncomfortable, requiring her to crawl through spaces that barely accommodated her equipment. The approach took nearly an hour, but delivered her inside the perimeter without triggering any defensive systems or alerting the guards to her presence. Emerging from the drainage system required precise timing to avoid detection by roving patrols that followed unpredictable patterns around the compound. Sarah waited in concealment until a guard patrol passed her position, then moved quickly toward the central building where the hostages were being held. Her success depended on reaching the building before the next patrol cycle brought guards back to the area. The building's ground floor contained a guard station where 2 SEALs monitored security cameras and radio communications. Their position controlled access to the upper levels where the hostages were located, making them priority targets that would need to be neutralized before any rescue attempt could succeed. Sarah studied the layout through windows, calculating approach routes and engagement sequences. Petty Officer First Class James Sullivan occupied the guard station's primary position, his attention divided between multiple security monitors and radio traffic from other elements of the defensive force. His partner, Petty Officer Second Class Robert Kim, monitored communications with external command elements while maintaining awareness of activities throughout the compound. Both men were experienced operators who understood that their alertness was crucial to mission success. Sarah's approach to the building required crossing 20 yards of open ground that was visible from multiple guard positions. She timed her movement to coincide with a shift change that temporarily reduced the number of observers, sprinting across the danger area and reaching the building's exterior wall without detection. Her success in penetrating the compound's outer defenses had positioned her for the most critical phase of the operation. The entry into the building used techniques that Sarah had practiced countless times, but never employed against opponents of this caliber. She accessed the structure through a maintenance entrance that bypassed the main security checkpoints while providing direct access to the guard station. Her movement through the building's corridors required absolute silence and perfect timing to avoid detection by audio sensors. The neutralization of the guard station happened with surgical precision that impressed observers monitoring the exercise through closed-circuit cameras. Sarah moved through the space like a force of nature, using techniques that combined speed, surprise, and overwhelming tactical advantage to achieve her objectives before the defenders could react effectively. Her actions demonstrated capabilities that few people possessed. Guard station compromised. Hostage extraction in progress, Sarah reported through her radio system, the first communication she had transmitted during the entire exercise. Her voice carried none of the stress or fatigue that might have been expected after hours of sustained high-intensity operations. The report confirmed to observers that she was proceeding according to plan despite the enormous challenges she had faced. The hostage extraction required moving 3 simulated captives from the second floor to an extraction point outside the compound, while avoiding detection by the remaining guards who were responding to the loss of communication from the guard station. Sarah's success would depend on speed and tactical coordination that had to be executed flawlessly under conditions that offered no margin for error. Master Chief Martinez realized immediately that his defensive position had been compromised when radio contact with the guard station was lost. His training and experience told him that a professional operator was inside the compound, someone capable enough to penetrate defenses that should have been impregnable. He began implementing reaction protocols designed to contain threats and protect the hostages. All stations, we have a security breach in the central building. Implement lockdown procedures and converge on Building 1 immediately, Martinez transmitted to his scattered team members. The response would bring overwhelming force to bear on Sarah's position, but she had anticipated this reaction and planned accordingly. Sarah reached the hostages' location to find 3 Navy personnel who had been acting their roles with impressive realism throughout the night. Their apparent fear and confusion added psychological complexity to the scenario while testing her ability to manage civilian behavior during high-stress operations. Her instructions to the simulated captives needed to be clear and authoritative without increasing their stress levels. The extraction from the building required moving 4 people through spaces designed for individual movement, while maintaining security against hostile forces that were closing in rapidly. Sarah's tactical plan called for using diversionary techniques to misdirect the defenders' attention while she moved the hostages toward the extraction point through routes that avoided predicted reaction patterns. The running firefight that erupted as Sarah and the hostages left the building tested every combat skill she had developed over years of intensive training. The SEALs pursuing them employed tactics and weapons that created realistic stress conditions while maintaining safety protocols required for training exercises. The sound of simulated gunfire and explosions added authenticity that pushed psychological pressure to extreme levels. 300 yards from the compound, Sarah reached the predetermined extraction point where a helicopter waited to complete the mission. The aircraft crew had been monitoring radio traffic from the exercise and understood that they were witnessing something unprecedented in naval special warfare history. Sarah's successful completion of the hostage rescue scenario represented achievements that defied conventional expectations. As the helicopter lifted off with Sarah and the simulated hostages aboard, radio traffic from the compound confirmed that the exercise had been concluded successfully. Master Chief Martinez and his team acknowledged that they had been defeated by an opponent who demonstrated capabilities equal to or exceeding those of elite special operations personnel. Their professional assessment carried weight that no amount of political rhetoric could match. The flight back to base provided Sarah with her first opportunity to reflect on everything that had transpired during the night. 6 hours of sustained high-intensity operations had tested every skill she possessed while pushing physical and mental endurance to absolute limits. Her success validated years of preparation and training while opening doors that had previously been closed to women in military service. The landing at the Naval Special Warfare Facility was witnessed by the 267 SEALs who had gathered to observe the exercise. Their reaction to Sarah's performance would become legendary within military circles, establishing a new standard for evaluating capability regardless of gender. The shocked silence that greeted her emergence from the helicopter spoke volumes about the impact of what they had witnessed. As Sarah walked across the landing pad toward the debriefing area, she could see recognition and respect in the faces of warriors who had initially questioned whether she belonged among their ranks. Her performance had answered those questions definitively, proving that excellence knew no gender boundaries when combined with proper training and unwavering determination. The sound of 267 SEALs slowly beginning to applaud marked the beginning of a new era in military history.